so that a slave would not revolt if he thought he was revolting against God, and teach him that he is to be obedient and humble and to work hard and be hardworking and to look for pie in the sky after death. And they used it. So at that time, slavery became a religious issue. And it stayed a religious issue all the way up until about 1859, 1 year before the Civil War, 2 years before the Civil War broke out. At that time, Charles Darwin wrote a book, or rather a scripture he calls The Survival of the Fittest, and the survival of the species. And what he did in there, drew some lineages saying if an elephant is bigger than a mouse, and a mouse is bigger than an amoeba, there's a vertical line between a tree and grass, and the highest is always superior to the lowest. And in doing that analysis, he says that since whites now, as a result of slavery, whites have acquired almost 100% ownership of everything, then obviously they are superior to black folk, the slave who owns nothing. And at that point in 1859, the issue changed then. From an economic or religious issue, it became a biological issue. And then after that point on, up until the present time, they started putting on your driver's license, on your birth certificate, what race you belong to. And at that time, see, the dominant society had acquired almost 99%, or not 100% control of everything. And so the dominant society was on a mountain, and black folk were in the ditch. The dominant society had received everything and controlled everything, the black person in the ditch. So what they did then, they took the word race, R-A-C-E. They took the word race, they cut the E off the end of it, and they stuck on a suffix. The suffix is ISM. ISM is a suffix that means maintain the prevailing conditions. Let nothing change. And they stuck ISM on. That's what racism is. Racism means that now that whites own and control everything and blacks own nothing, keep it that way. And that prevailed all the way up through the Civil Rights Movement in 1960, which means that anybody who accepts the racist philosophies, it's not about who's superior, it's about who owns and controls. Therefore, the philosophy is be conservative. Let nothing move from white hands to black hands. That is racism. Let nothing move from white hands to black hands. So consequently, the dominant society developed these philosophies that say, I'm opposed to reparation, I'm opposed to affirmative action, I'm opposed to set-asides and preferential treatment for black folk, because that would put them in a position to get resources and ownership and control. That's what racism. So racism is anything that will keep black folk from changing those conditions, from getting out of that ditch. That's the issue. That issue has remained constant. That's the same issue that you're going to run into now, whether you're talking about getting money from a bank or whether you're talking about the Obama campaign. The issue in the Obama campaign has nothing to do with Obama's qualifications. You live in our society now where white skin is associated and identified with meaning authority, wealth, and power. And you're smoking something that's illegal if you don't understand that, because it means that they're not going to let you put Obama in if they can stop it. Obama means that means if Obama goes in, you're crushing the white psyche in a sense of saying that whiteness no longer represents authority and power and wealth. And the other greatest fear they have is that if he gets in at that point, if he gets in, that means that in our country, symbolically, that the family that lives in the White House is known as the first family. Do you think in your wildest dream do you think in your wildest dream that all of a sudden this white country will say, now, although the first family is a black family, that's when them nigger families up there, and they're the first family. And then and Michelle sitting in the White House when the wife of the president is known as the first lady. Do you think, for an instance, that white women in this country are going to let a black woman be known as the first lady? And the issue right now between, whether it was with Hillary Clinton or now with Sarah Palin, the issue is not what you all come here, and the issue is what we call genderized racism that goes all the way back to 1840s. Starting in the 1840s, when they started to get blacks out of slavery and an abolition movement started to eradicate slavery in the country. At that time, the women's issue jumped up in 1840s. And what they're saying is that before you ever give anything to black folk, it must come to a white woman first. And it must come to a white woman first. Why? Because a white woman is a natural extension of the white man. She is his second in command. Whether you're in a plantation or you're in modern day society, she is next in line to receive that which he does no longer want or can't get. And white women in history co-own, co-control, co-influence, and inherited 100% of everything that the white man had. The only thing she didn't have was she claimed was she didn't have the right to vote. That's a lie. She did have the right to vote. From ever since going back to the 1600s, white women could vote. They could always vote. But the rule was that you had to own property to be able to vote. And white women who owned property could vote. But they used this thing about the white women not being allowed to vote as a generator of a white enthusiasm to impede blacks coming out of the ditch after slavery. And white women then opposed the civil rights laws and the 13th, the 14th, and 15th Amendment. And then again in 1919, when they came back from the service, and the black men coming back from the military want to exert themselves, that's why they gave the 19th Amendment into the Constitution, or enacted into the Constitution. Because white women said, if you give us the right to vote, we'll help you protect yourselves against any uprising by blacks who are coming back from the returning soldiers, or from the Urban League that was just created, or the NAACP. So white women got the right to vote in 1919. But black women didn't get the right to vote until the 1960s. She was not included in that. And now the issue right now is that with Obama, is that they're going to find anything. That's why you see all these white women flocking around Hillary, then leaving Hillary and running over to McCain. That's to say that we will find anybody before we let put a black man in the power. And we have to understand what the game is. If you're going to play this game, you must learn how to practice group economics and group politics. You better learn fast. You got to learn how to